The following programming is EI, educational and informative.
Today on Mystery Hunters.
We're going underground. How do people do this?
And underwater.
To search for two mysterious hidden cities.
I'm diving into the ocean near the island of Bimini to explore what could have been the ruins of a city. Did an ancient race of people live underwater? I meet someone who says that he has proof that people lived there.
We found something pretty interesting.
And I'm searching for an ancient cave city. The entrance is hidden. Is that it there? Did people live underground once? And what kind of people were they?
And Doubting Dave shows you how to build your own underground city of ants.
This is Mystery Hunters.
We'll be right back with more Mystery Hunters. We now return to Mystery Hunters.
Wow, look at that. It looks like some sort of temple. But why would people build underwater? Is this an underwater gate? And what was it meant to keep out? Thousands of years ago, were people living beneath the waves? Actually, this place is far from ancient, and it's not an underwater city. It's part of a very cool hotel resort in the Bahamas. What if I told you underwater cities could be for real? There may be the ruins of an actual underwater city not far from here. But to find it, I'm gonna have to go. Underwater road that's part of an ancient city? People call it the Bimini Road.
I've got to get closer. Where can we land?
Sorry, Araya. You're gonna have to jump.
Now this is what I call diving. Bimini Road. The stones look like they've been cut by hand and placed there really carefully. Nothing natural could have placed these stones in a perfect line like this. Some believe it's proof of an underwater city. Well, it sure does look like a road. But did people really live down here once? Bill Keefe and his daughter Shannon dive here all the time. They say they've found some interesting evidence that shows the Bimini Road really was part of an underwater city.
We found it by chance, and when we brought it to the surface and cleaned it off, we found something pretty interesting.
There's an ancient city right underneath me. 8 stories underground. Thousands of caves dug out by hand. All connected together. Could humans have lived underground once?
Christina!
They look like chimneys. Are they coming from the underground city?
They look like chimneys, but they're just ordinary rocks.
Is there any way to spot the underground city from up here?
No, not from here, but I can drop you off and we can find a local guide to take you there.
Great. The guide said he'd meet me here. Fish a down.
Christina, have you been in the caves yet?
No, not yet, but I'm glad that you called. I can't stop thinking about something. They say that the cave city is man-made. If people lived there, what kind of people were they? I mean, there was no light, no air. How could anybody live like that? Is it possible that they weren't like us?
It's possible. Check this out. These weird-looking insects and animals live underground. They've adapted to life there with no light and almost no air.
So what would humans look like if they lived underground for thousands of years?
Well, they'd start out like us. But after hundreds of years underground, their descendants might not have eyesight or even eyes. Cave creatures don't need eyes, since they use things like hair and antennas to feel their way around in the dark. And they probably develop big noses and ears to help them find food.
Whoa! If people like that did live underground, could they ever come back up?
Oh, I doubt it. They probably wouldn't survive above ground.
Thanks, Doubting Dave.
Good luck.
Merhaba Christina, gidelim mi?
Merhaba Murat. Let's go.
Christina, bak burası.
Teşekkür ederim. I found it. The entrance to the underground city. I may not have evolved for life underground. I'm going down anyway. Hope I'm the only one down here.
Do you want to make your own cave city? It's so easy, you don't even need tools to do it. Because your cave city is going to be a secret hideaway for ants. All you need to make your cave city is an empty jar, a small plastic bottle, a big plastic bottle, and cookies, crackers, cheesecloth, duct tape, and a sponge. So how do you use all this stuff to build a cave city? First, get an adult to cut off the tops of both bottles. Then tape a piece of cardboard over the top of the small bottle. Stick a loop of tape to the bottom of the small bottle, and put the small bottle into the big bottle. This is your cave city skeleton. Next, take your jar outside and go to a place with ant hills. When you find one, make sure the ants on it are black, not red, because red ants bite. Then scoop as much of your ant hill as you can into your jar along with some ants. And hurry home. When you get there, carefully pour the sandy, ant-filled soil between the small bottle and the big bottle so no ants fall out. Then, sprinkle some cracker crumbs and cookie crumbs on the cardboard lid for the ants to eat. And leave a little water out in a bottle cap. Finally, put your cheesecloth over the jar and wrap a rubber band around it to prevent escapes. You can't see it yet, but the ants in here have already started building a network of tunnels. Just like the cave city in Turkey. Except it would have taken people years to dig out all those tunnels with only rocks and hand tools. But ants use their mouths to dig, and they'll finish building your cave city in less than a day. You can keep your ant colony going for a couple of months and watch their cave city develop. But it's better for the ants if you put them back where you found them after a couple of weeks. You don't want the queen ant to notice they're missing. Oh, that's probably Christina.
We'll be right back with more Mystery Hunters. We now return to Mystery Hunters.
An ancient city was discovered deep underground in Turkey. Thousands of caves dug out by hand. Did people live underground once? And if they did, how did they survive? Could they have evolved to live underground without sun or air? This cave definitely looks like it was dug out with tools. I mean, look at all the markings. Can you imagine living in here? And without these lights, it would have been pitch black down here. Maybe the people who lived here didn't need light. I'm about 6 stories down now. That's strange. How could there be fresh air this deep? Unless... That's one mystery solved. This looks like an air shaft. Whoever built this place must have built these at the same time. Guess they needed air to survive, just like us. Hello! Hello? No? I thought I was alone down here. Hello?
Hello,
Hi, I didn't know anybody else was down here.
I'm here often. I have been studying the caves for years.
Great. I need someone to help me figure out how the people live down here. I know they had shafts for the air, but how would they survive without food and light?
They burned linseed oil for light.
They burnt linseed oil? That makes sense. And I guess that the shafts would have acted like chimneys for the smoke. But how could they have grown food without sunlight? What would they eat?
Let me show you. So these are the storage rooms for food. They used to bring their food from outside and store them here.
So the people who lived down here would go up to the surface to get food?
Yes, of course.
If the people who built these caves didn't live here all the time, they wouldn't need big ears or noses to find food in the dark. And they were just regular people. But why would anybody want to live underground?
This area was full of wars.
There were many wars here. During that time, people who lived in the area would hide underground from invading armies. So, this was a giant hiding place. So the people that lived in the cave city weren't mutated humans. Most of the time, they lived above ground, just like you and me. In the past, they used these caves for protection, but now they've turned them into hotels. So tonight, I'm gonna try living in a cave just like the people who built this place did thousands of years ago. Well, sort of.
I'm in the Bahamas looking for evidence of an underwater city. Could these rocks be the ruins of an ancient underwater city? Bill Keefe and his daughter Shannon found something they think might prove it. Another rock.
Well, it's not just another rock. See this area here? After we brought this to the surface, we chipped off a corner and sent it off to have it analyzed. We found out that it was granite. Granite is not common to the Bahamas, or actually this part of the world. So we took the stone and cleaned it off, and we found this.
It looks like some kind of symbol's been cut into it. What do you think it is?
I think it might be writing to them or something, but I really don't know.
Have you found any other rocks with markings on them?
No, we haven't. So far, just this one.
Well, with just this one piece, it's kind of hard to tell what it could be. Can I take a picture?
Help yourself.
I need to find out if this mark could be some kind of writing. Doubting Dave, you there?
Hey, Araya.
Hey, I'm sending you a picture of a rock with a strange mark on it.
Got it?
Can you tell me if it's writing?
And the answer is...
Maybe.
How can we know for sure?
We can't. Not with one symbol. Just like our writing, ancient writing is usually a bunch of symbols strung together. And even though the mark on your rock looks like a symbol, it could easily just be a scratch or a chip.
Okay, thanks, Doubting Dave. Well, I guess one mark on one rock doesn't prove that the Bimini Road is part of an underwater city. Oh, hey, Shannon.
Hey.
Is there anybody else on the island that can tell me more about the road?
Maybe Mr. Ashley Saunders. He lives about a block and a half down. He might be able to give you some information.
All right. The man who lives here, Ashley Saunders, is supposed to know everything about the Bimini Road. In fact, parts of his house even look like they were made with the same stones as the road.
Hi, Araya. You have a good eye. My house design was inspired by those same ancient builders.
Do you think that the ruins around Bimini Road were actually an ancient city?
Yes, because the stones are all laid in a straight line, and they are flat, and they resemble a brick road.
So what do you think the Bimini Road was used for 10,000 years ago?
Personally, I think it was used as a port.
If the Bimini Road was an ancient port, there would have been lots of people going through there. And where there's people, there's stuff. When we investigated other ancient sites, we always found things people left behind. But so far, around the Bimini Road, I've only found rocks. Bill and Shannon are taking me back to the area where they found the rock with that marking. If I can find actual artifacts left behind by people, it could prove that this really was an ancient city. Could this be what I'm looking for?
If that mark on the Bimini Rock was a glyph, could a team of scientists figure out what it says? That's what 13-year-old Bridget Lappin of Halifax, Canada wants to know. Take a look on the Mystery Illustrator. Dear Doubting Dave, when archaeologists dig up something with ancient writing on it, like a tomb or a rock or whatever, how do they figure out what the writing means? Well, Bridget, the most famous glyphs in the world are Egyptian hieroglyphs. But for centuries, nobody could figure out what they meant. The problem was that everyone who could read hieroglyphs had died. So, to the people who came after, all those drawings and symbols looked like gibberish. But then, about 200 years ago, everything changed. Right here in the Egyptian desert, someone uncovered an ancient tablet. The tablet had writing on it in 3 different languages: hieroglyphics, ancient Greek, and another Egyptian language called Demotic. Scientists who could read Demotic and Greek realized that the message in both those languages was the same, so they figured that the hieroglyphs must be saying the same thing too. Then, they compared the writing they knew on the stone with the hieroglyphs and figured out what each of the symbols meant. And that's really the only way to translate any ancient glyph. That is, until we can go back in time and talk to the people who wrote them.
We'll be right back with more Mystery Hunters. We now return to Mystery Hunters.
I'm underwater a mile off the island of Bimini, and I may have just found proof that these stones are actually the remains of an ancient city. This rock has perfectly round holes in it. They look man-made. The rock with the holes is way too heavy to lift, even underwater. So I'll take a smaller rock of the same material up to the surface to be tested. It looks like somebody carved perfectly round holes into it. But why? Fine match. An ancient boat anchor. Well, maybe Ashley Saunders was right. The stones really could be the ruins of an old seaport. I think it's time for me to get the rock sample I took from Bimini Road tested. I was wondering if there's any way you could tell if this is part of an ancient city.
I think I know what it is, but we'll have to cut it in half and take a look inside.
All right.
Well, there's one more thing we need to do. Well, first we'll put some acid on it. Well, just as I thought, it's beach rock. And beach rock is limestone, and that's why the acid makes it fizz like this.
What is beach rock or limestone exactly?
Well, it's a rock that forms in the beach zone where the tide runs water in and out.
When the tide rises, it pushes water deep down into the beach sand. And over a few years, the sand under the surface can actually cement together into rocks. But the rocks at Bimini Road look like cut blocks of stone put together.
Once it's exposed in the sunlight, it starts to crack, just like an old concrete road.
Sunlight caused the cracks in the beach rock. So that means these rocks must have been above water at one time. 10,000 years ago, you could walk from one island to another in the Bahamas. But at the end of the last ice age, when giant sheets of ice around the world started to melt, sea level rose and covered the natural rock known as the Bimini Road. So they look man-made, but really they're not.
That's correct. They're not man-made.
Thousands of years ago, couldn't people have used beach rock as building blocks?
If they did, you would expect to find some artifacts in the rock. We've looked and looked, and we have not found any artifacts in these rocks.
I found this underwater, and a lot of people think that it's an ancient anchor.
Oh, and those are drill holes. I made those in the 1970s when we were learning about the origin of these rocks.
So you've been to Bimini Road?
Many times.
So you really don't think that this is an ancient anchor?
Absolutely not.
So I guess the ruins around Bimini Road weren't built by an ancient civilization, but by Mother Nature. She may not have created an underwater city, but all in all, I'd say nature's a pretty good architect. Someday, maybe this will be a beach rock artifact. And someone will have to solve the mystery of mystery hunters.
Araya, this is incredible. It turns out the underground city I was in isn't the only one down there. Archaeologists have found hundreds of underground cities in Turkey, and they think they might all be connected.
Very cool.
And they're not even sure if they found them all. Who knows how far these things spread out?
Istanbul?
No. Mystery Hunters headquarters?
Oh.
Remember, things aren't always what they seem.
This is MeTV.